Hello, my name's Sarah. Thank you for being here and welcome. So, we are nearly to the end of our book. I just wanted to say thank you for joining me and I hope you've enjoyed this story. I definitely thought I'd have like 3 books read by Christmas, but that hasn't happened. But I do hope you've enjoyed this book, and I am going to be continuing these videos into the new year, as I just think what I'm going to try and do is have lots of collections of different videos for different books. So hopefully you're enjoying them and will stay with me. But in the meantime, if you've got any thoughts or questions or queries or feelings, anything related, just want to chat, please do not hesitate to get in touch with me, as I am always very open to hearing advice, thoughts, whatever. Having a chat, very open. I mean, I'm chattering away to myself right now, aren't I? So very welcome. Okay, so I'm going to finish our story today, and then, like I said in my last video, I'm going to be doing another video on Friday, which is Christmas Day. Obviously not a usual Christmas day in our lives, but we'll try and do something nice and fun to make good of a bad situation. So yeah, that is the plan. Okay, I keep getting quoted by my friends. They keep saying my plan going forward, because I say it all the time. So my plan going forward. There you go. Okie dokie. So as it's Christmas, I feel like you should have a mulled wine in hand right now, or cup of cocoa. Getting cozy. All right. So last time we were with the ghost of future, and we were in Bob Cratchit's house, and the family are all grieving over Tiny Tim, who has passed away. So we are with the Cratchit family at the moment, and the Scrooge and the ghost. Help if I could find my page. Okay. But however and wherever we part from one another, I am sure that none of us shall forget poor Tiny Tim, shall we, or this first parting that was among us. Never, father, cried they all. And I know, said Bob, I know, my dears, that when we recollect how patient and how mild he was, although he was a little child, we shall not quarrel easily among ourselves and forget poor Tiny Tim in doing it. No, never, father, they all cried again. I am very happy, said little Bob. I'm very happy. Mrs. Cratchit kissed him, his daughters kissed him, the 2 young Cratchits kissed him, and Peter and himself shook hands. Spirit of Tiny Tim, the childish essence was from God. Spectre, said Scrooge, something informs me that our parting moment is at hand. I know it, but I know not how. Tell me what man that was whom we saw lying dead. The ghost of Christmas yet to come conveyed him as before, though at a different time, he thought. Indeed, there seemed no order in these last visions, save that they were in the future, into the resorts of business men, but showed himself not as himself. Indeed, the spirit did not say anything, but went straight on, as to the end just now desired, until besought by Scrooge to tarry for a moment. This court, said Scrooge, though which we hurry now, is where my place of occupation is, and has been for a length of time. I see the house, let me behold what I shall be in days to come. The spirit stopped, the hand was pointed elsewhere. The house is yonder, Scrooge exclaimed. Why do you point away? The inexorable finger underwent no change. Scrooge hastened to the window of his office and looked in. It was an office still, but not his. The furniture was not the same, and the figure in the chair was not himself. The phantom pointed as before. He joined it once again, and wondering why and whither he had gone, accompanied it until they reached an iron gate. He paused to look around before entering. A churchyard. Here, then, the wretched man whose name he now learnt lay underneath the ground. It was a worthy place, walled by houses overrun by grass and weeds, the growth of vegetation's death, not life, choked up with too much burying, fat with repleted appetite. A worthy place. The spirit stood among the graves and pointed down to one. He advanced towards it trembling. The phantom was exactly as it had been, but he dreaded that he saw new meaning in its solemn shape. Before I draw nearer to that stone which you point, said Scrooge, answer me one question. Are these shadows of things that will be, or are they shadows of things that may be only? Still the ghost pointed downward to the grave by which it stood. Men's courses will foreshadow certain ends, to which, if persevered in, they must lead, said Scrooge. But if the courses be departed from, the ends will change. Say as thus with whatever you show me. The spirit was immovable as ever. Scrooge crept towards it, trembling as he went, and followed the finger read upon the stone of the neglected grave, his own name, Ebenezer Scrooge, the last of the spirits. Am I that man who lay upon the bed? He cried upon his knees. The finger pointed from the grave to him and back again. No, spirit, oh no, no, the finger was still there. Spirit, he cried, tight clutching at his robe, hear me. I am not the man I was. I will not be the man I must have been but for this intercourse. Why show me this if I am past all hope? For the first time the hand appeared to shake. Good spirit, he pursued, as down upon the ground he fell before it. Your nature intercedes for me, and pities me. Assure me that I may yet change these shadows you have shown me by an altered life. The kind hand trembled. I will honour Christmas in my heart, and I will keep it all the year. I will live in the past, the present, and the future, the spirits of all. Three shall strive within me. I shall not shut out the lessons they teach. Oh, tell me that I may sponge away the writing on this stone. In his agony he caught the spectral hand. It sought to free itself, but it was strong in its entreaty, and it detained it. The spirit, stronger yet, repulsed him, holding up his hand in a last prayer to have his fate reversed. He saw an alteration in the phantom's hood and dress. It shrunk, collapsed, and dwindled down into a bedpost. Stave 5. The end of it. Yes, and the bedpost was his own. The bed was his own, the room was his own, best and happiest of all. The time before him was his own, to make amends in. I will live in the past, the present, and future, Scrooge repeated, as he scrambled out of bed. The spirits of all three shall strive within me. Oh, Jacob Marley, heaven and the Christmas time be praised for this. I say it on my knees, oh, Jacob, on my knees. He was so fluttered and so glowing with his good intentions that his broken voice would scarcely answer to his call. He had been sobbing violently in his conflict with the spirit, and his face was wet with tears. They are not torn down, cried Scrooge, folding on his bed curtains in his arms. They are not torn down, rings and all. They are here. I am here. The shadows of things that would have been may be dispelled. They will be. I know they will. His hands were busy with his garments all this time, turning them inside out, putting them on upside down, tearing them down, misplaying them, making them parties to every kind of extravagance. I don't know what to do, cried Scrooge, laughing and crying at the same breath, and making a perfect lacoon of himself with his stockings. I am as light as a feather, as happy as an angel. I'm as merry as a schoolboy. I'm as giddy as a drunken man. A Merry Christmas to everyone. A Happy New Year to all the world. Hello here. Hello. Whoop. He had frisked into the sitting room and was now standing there, perfectly winded. The saucepan that the gruel was in, cried Scrooge, starting off again and going round the fireplace. There's the door by which the ghost of Jacob Marley entered. There's the corner where the ghost of Christmas present sat. There's the window where I was wondering that I saw the wandering spirits. It's all right. It's all true. It all happened. Ready for a man who had been out of practice for so many years. It was a splendid laugh, a most illustrated laugh, the father of a long, long line of brilliant laughs. I don't know what day of the month it is, said Scrooge. I don't know how long I've been among the spirits. I don't know anything. I'm quite a baby. Never mind, I don't care. I'd rather be a baby. Hello, whoop! Hello there! He checked in his transports by the churches ringing in the lustiest peals he'd ever heard. Clash, clang, hammer, ding, dong, bell. Bell, dong, ding, hammer, clash, clash. Oh, glorious, glorious. Running to the window, he opened it and put out his head. No fog, no mist. Clear, bright, jovial, stirring, cold, cold, piping for the blood to dance to his golden sunlight. Heavenly sky, sweet, fresh air, merry bells. Oh, glorious, glorious. What's today? Cried Scrooge, calling downward to a boy in Sunday clothes, who perhaps had loitered in to look at him. Eh? Returned the boy, with all his might of wonder. What day is today, my fine fellow? Said Scrooge. Today, replied the boy. Why, it's Christmas Day. It's Christmas Day, said Scrooge to himself. I haven't missed it. The spirits have done it all in one night. They can do anything they like. Of course they can. Of course they can. Hello, my fine fellow. Hello, returned the boy. Do you know the Poulters in the next street but one, at the corner? Scrooge inquired. I should hope I did, replied the lad. An intelligent boy, said Scrooge. A remarkable boy. Do you know whether they sold the prize turkey that was hanging up there? Not the little prize turkey, the big one. What, the one as big as me? Returned the boy. What a delightful boy, said Scrooge. It's a pleasure to talk to him. Yes, my book. It's hanging there now, replied the boy. Is it? Said Scrooge. Go and buy it. Walker, exclaimed the boy. No, no, said Scrooge. I am in earnest. Go and buy it and tell them to bring it here, that I might give them the direction where to take it. Come back with the man and I'll give you a shilling. Come back with him in less than 5 minutes and I'll give you half a crown. The boy was off like a shot. He must have had a steady hand at a trigger who could have shot off that half so fast. I'll send it to Bob Cratchit, whispered Scrooge, rubbing his hands and spitting with a laugh. I should not known who sent it. It's twice the size of Tiny Tim. Joe Milner never made such a joke as sending it to Bob's will be. The hand in which he wrote the address was not a steady one, but write it he did, somehow, and went downstairs to open the street door ready for the coming of the poulterman's man, and he stood there waiting his arrival. The knocker caught his eye. I shall love it as long as I live, cried Scrooge, patting it with his hand. I scarcely ever looked at it before. What an honest expression it has in its face. It's a wonderful knocker. Here's the turkey. Hello, whoop! How are you? Merry Christmas! It was a turkey. He could have stood upon his legs, that bird. He would have snapped them all off short in a minute like sticks of sealing wax. Why, it's impossible to carry that to Camden Town, said Scrooge. You must have a cab. The chuckle with which he said this, the chuckle to which he paid for the turkey, and the chuckle with which he paid for the cab, and the chuckle with which he recompensed the boy, were only to be exceeded by a chuckle with which he sat down breathless in his chair again, and chuckled till he cried. Shaving was not an easy task, for his hand continued to shake very much, and shaving requires attention, even when you don't dance while you're at it. But if he had cut off the end of his nose, he would have put a piece of sticky plaster over it and been quite satisfied. He dressed himself in all his best, and last got out to the streets. The people were by this time pouring forth as he had seen them with the ghost of Christmas present, and walking with his hands beside him, Scrooge regarded every one with a delighted smile. He looked so irresistibly pleasant, in a word, that 3 or 4 good-humoured fellows said, Good morning, sir, and Merry Christmas to you, and Scrooge said often afterwards that of all the blithe sounds he had ever heard, these were the blithest in his ears. He had not gone far when, coming on towards him, he beheld the portly gentleman who he had walked into his counting-house the day before, and said Scrooge and Marley's, I believe. It sent a pang towards his heart to think how this gentleman would look upon him when they met, but he knew what path lay straight before him, and he took it. My dear sir, said Scrooge, quickening his pace, and taking the old gentleman in both his hands, how do you do? I hope you succeeded yesterday. It was very kind of you, and Merry Christmas to you, sir. Mr. Scrooge? Yes, said Scrooge, that's my name, and I fear it may not be pleasant to you. Allow me to ask your pardon, and will you have thy goodness here? Scrooge whispered in his ear. Lord bless me, cried the gentleman, as if his breath were taken away. My dear Mr. Scrooge, are you serious? If you please, said Scrooge, not a farthing less. A great many back payments are included in it, I assure you. Will you do me that favour? My dear sir, said the other, shaking hands with him, I don't know what to say. So much Don't say anything, please, retorted Scrooge. Come and see me. Will you come and see me? I will, cried the old gentleman, and it was clear he meant to do it. Thank ye, said Scrooge. I am much obliged to you. I thank you 50 times, bless you. He went to the church and walked about the streets and watched the people hurrying to and fro, and patted children on the head, and questioned beggars, and looked down into the kitchens of houses, and held up the windows, and found that everything could yield him pleasure. He had never dreamed that any walk, that anything could give him so much happiness. In the afternoon he turned his steps towards his nephew's house. He passed the door a dozen times before he had the courage to go up and knock, but he made a dash and did it. Is your master at home, my dear? Said Scrooge to the little girl. Nice girl. Yes, sir. Where is he, my love? Said Scrooge. He's in the dining room, sir, along with mistress. I'll show you upstairs, if you please. Thank ye. He knows me, said Scrooge, with his hands already on the dining room lock. I'll go in here, my dear. He turned it gently, and sidled his face in round the door. They were looking at the table, with which was spread in a great array, for these young housekeepers are always nervous on such points, and like to see that everything is right. Fred, said Scrooge. Dear heart alive! How his niece by marriage started! Scrooge had forgotten for a moment about her sitting in the corner with the footstool, or he wouldn't have done it on any account. Why, bless my soul, cried Fred. Who's that? It's I, your Uncle Scrooge. I have come to dinner. Will you let me in, Fred? Let him in. It's a mercy he didn't shake his arm off. He was at home in 5 minutes. Nothing could be heartier. His niece looked just the same. So did Topper when he came. So did the plump sister when she came. So did everyone when they came. Wonderful party, wonderful games, wonderful amity, wonderful happiness. But he was early at the office the next morning. Oh, he was early there, if he could only be the first, and catch Bob Cratchit coming late. That was the thing he'd set his heart upon. And he did it. Yes, he did. The clock struck 9. No Bob, 1/4 past. No Bob. He was full 18 minutes, and half behind his time. Scrooge sat with the door wide open, that he might see him come into the tank. His hat was off before he opened the door. His comforter too. He was on his stool in a jiffy, driving away his pen, as if he was trying to overtake 9 o'clock. Hello, growled Scrooge, in his unaccustomed voice, as near as he could feign it. What do you mean by coming here at this time of day? I'm very sorry, sir, said Bob. I'm behind my time. You are, repeated Scrooge. Yes, I think you are. Step this way, sir, if you please. It's only once a year, sir, pleaded Bob, appearing from the tank. It shall be not repeated. I was making a rather merry yesterday, sir. Now I'll tell you what, my friend, said Scrooge. I'm not going to stand this sort of thing any longer. And therefore, he continued, leaping from his stool, and giving Bob such a dig in the waistcoat that he staggered back to the tank again. And therefore, I'm about to raise your salary. Bob trembled and got a little nearer to the ruler. He had a momentary idea of knocking Scrooge down with it, holding him and calling him to the people in the court for help and strait waistcoat. A Merry Christmas, Bob, said Scrooge, with an earnestness that could not be mistaken, as he clapped him on the back. A merrier Christmas, Bob, my good fellow, than I have given you for many a year. I'll raise your salary, and endeavour to assist your struggling family, and we will discuss your affairs this very afternoon over a Christmas bowl of smoking bishop, Bob. Make up the fires, and buy another coal scuttle before you dot another I, Bob Cratchit. Scrooge was better than his word. He did it all, and infinitely more, and to Tiny Tim, who did not die, he was a second father. He became as good a friend, as good a master, and as good a man as the good old city knew, or any other good old city, town, or borough in the good old world. Some people laughed to see the alteration in him, but he let them laugh, and little heeded them, for he was wise enough to know that nothing ever happened on this globe for good at which some people did not have their fill of laughter in the outset, and knowing that such as these would be blind anyway, he thought it quite as well that he should wrinkle up their eyes in grins, and as the mildly and less attractive forms. His own heart laughed, and that was quite enough for him. He had no further intercourse with spirits, but lived upon the total abstinence principle ever afterwards, and it was always said of him that he knew how to keep Christmases well. If any man alive possessed the knowledge, may that truly be said to all of us. And so, as Tiny Tim observed, God bless us, every one. Oh, what a happy ending. Love that. I hope you did too. Okay, thank you so much for joining me with this story. I really hope you've enjoyed it, and I will be revealing our next book next week. Sending lots of best wishes to you all. I hope you have lovely Christmases if you're able, and best wishes for the new year. Lots of love. Take care. Bye.